Hey everybody, James Simone here, creator of Apex Rollup. Just wanted to walk through some common setup situations for Apex Rollup, starting with a brand new org. I am looking at our example account page here, and as you can see, I've set up a number of different fields that I'm hoping I can roll up information from opportunities to my target accounts. So we've got a nice count field. We've got a set of min and max fields looking to take the min of the created date time for each opportunity and then the max uh, of when each opportunity was last modified. I'm going to show you a really cool rollup that, in conjunction with the equivalent of a SOQL where clause, allows you to do things like roll up true or false values to different fields. So in this case, we're going to be checking to see if an opportunity name, any of the opportunity names associated with a given account, contains the keyword second. And I'll show you how we're going to get that all set up in a second. And then we're going to sum up all of the opportunity amounts. And we're going to concat all of the opportunity names together. So in order to get started here, you can access the Recalculation app for Apex Rollup. You can go straight to the Recalculate Rollup tab, or if you look for Rollup, you can see the app itself. Now I already have this open on another tab, and I'm going to show you an example of, with absolutely nothing set up in this org, what it looks like to take all of my opportunity information and start rolling it up to all these accounts. Now, because I haven't filled anything out, I don't have the option of going over and using this toggle. I'm going to show you what it would look like if you just want to start filling out information and getting rollups started. So prior to creating any kind of custom metadata, which is another step here, and after that step, we'll end up using this toggle here and considerably shortening the amount of time that it takes to get these full recalculations started. But basically, when you first install Apex Rollup, you are going to have all of the metadata associated with the package, but you're not going to have anything set up to pre-calculate the existing values for what already exists in your org. Now, if I go to my all accounts list view, you can see I've created a ton of different accounts and a ton of different opportunities associated with each of these accounts. And so I have a lot of data that I'd like to roll up, but I don't have any data presently rolled up. So if I go, for example, to an account that comes with every scratch org that's newly created, and I'm looking to see, for example, what's the sum of all of the opportunity amounts rolled up to the account, then I'm missing a field here on my page layout or my dynamic page form. So I'll happily deal with caching in the example. You can see it's there, just waiting. And now it's there. So let's get started. So I'm in my Recalculate Rollup application. I'm going to start to fill out some of these fields. Now, in previous examples, I've already used amount, so I have it starting to pre-fill onto the page because it's my browser is remembering that I've used these things before. But just to go through what I'm looking for, first I'm looking to align where am I starting from. So the child object, the API name, I'm starting from opportunity, so I'm putting in opportunity. The field that I'm looking to roll up on the opportunity is the amount. Now, how does this opportunity relate to the parent object that I'm looking to roll up to? Well, it relates using the account ID. So what's the rollup object API name? In this case, we're looking to roll up those values from the opportunity to the account. And here I've used annual revenue a lot, so I think that's what's going to show up here as I start to click. But in this case, I'm actually going to go off and use my new custom field that I've made specifically for summing up the opportunity amounts. So if I look for my custom rollup field that I'm looking to use, it's going to be sum of op amount C. So I'm going to paste that in there. And on the account, how does it connect to the opportunity? For the account, it's the ID. Pretty easy. And I want the sum. So when I go to start this rollup, I'm immediately going to be told I haven't set anything up in this org. So I actually need to go off and enable the rollup setting custom setting, the org default for this hierarchical custom setting. And the reason for that is so that if you're doing different package installs, if you're doing big data loads, if you have specific integration users that you don't want to have rollups running for, or profiles that you don't want rollups to be running for, this custom setting is going to give you the chance to granularly access and add permissions for rollups running. But by default, I'd like to have all of the rollups running for any given user. So I'm going to go into my rollup setting, custom setting, and I'm going to add a new default for the entire organization. This is the only thing that's available, is enabled, and it's set to true by default. So, all right, let's go back to the app and let's restart this calculation. And now I'm going to get some feedback about this job that I've kicked off here at the bottom. And it's going to tell me what's going on. And in addition to that, if I go to the Apex job section of setup, I can go off and monitor, hey, how is this calculation job progressing? I've been here for a while. Maybe I'm starting to wonder if it's going to finish or not. And it's going to quickly go through all of these different batches. And I'll go into how these, how Apex Rollup decides how many batches, for example, to kick off for any given operation. I've created a bunch of opportunities for each of these given accounts. So there's going to be quite a bit of information in this scratch org to go off and calculate. And in the meantime, when I'm back on this page, it's going to be polling to see when this job finishes. And just like that, it's finished. So if I go back to my account list view, and I go back to all accounts, and I add the field that I'm looking for. Nice. Put that above last modified date. And just like that, I can start to see, okay, this is great. All of the amounts have been properly rolled up to all my different accounts, including the opportunity amounts from the accounts that come, again, with every scratch org that gets created. So you can see that for all of the opportunities that I've created, the total sum has been rolled up to each of these accounts. And I can go off and I'm going to look at this as an example. But if I look, for example, at one of the default accounts that comes in here, and I go to the opportunities, you can see that the amounts are quite a bit larger there. And that's why the sum is going to be properly filled out with that much larger number. Now, if I go back to all accounts, again, let's look at this last account that had the 10 amount rolled up. I can verify that, in fact, 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 4 is 8, plus 2 is 10. And that's the same for each of these accounts. But now I'm left in this state of, okay, well, I've started to roll these values up. This is great, but it doesn't really feel sustainable for me to be continually filling out this form every single time that I want to kick off a new recalculation job. And the good news is that for most objects that you have in your Salesforce org, you have the option of using custom metadata to fill out these values, and then you can very easily kick off a number of different calculation jobs all at once. So if I go to custom metadata and I go to manage records for my rollup, custom metadata type, I have some records already set up for testing, but I'd like to create all of these additional rollup custom metadata records to represent the calculations that I'm looking to do for all of the custom fields that we have here. So let's start by doing a count of opportunities. So immediately for the label, I always like to try to include the source that the data is coming from. So opportunity in this case, I'm probably going to shorten it to op so it's a little bit more human readable here, to the account plus the thing that I'm trying to do. So here I'm going to try to say op count to account. It's automatically going to create this name for me. Here I want to say that the parent object is account. Again, I'm going to go back through and basically doing the same kind of mapping that I was doing in this form, but here, once I've selected the parent account and the child account, I start to get these intelligent drop-downs here where I can easily fill out the information I'm looking for. So the lookup field is the account ID. The rollup field is the count of ops. Now, my child object, I'll look for opportunity here. The lookup field on the child object, once again, is the account ID. And the rollup field here is just going to be the record ID. Now you can choose to select different rollup fields for a count-based operation, which I will go off and select. The logic for a count-based operation roughly follows the rules that SOQL has. So when you do a strict count, for example, of opportunities, it's just going to calculate whether or not those opportunities exist and increment or decrement those values, which we'll get into about keeping rollups in sync in a bit, as an opportunity is created or deleted or removed from an account, let's say. For other fields, if you're looking to do a count-based operation, there's one additional piece of information that's valuable, which is Apex Rollup and SOQL don't count values that are null or not filled out. So if you do a count-based operation on a field that is not the opportunity ID or the ID of the given record that you're on, then the first thing that it's going to go off and do is say, is this field filled out? If it is, great. It's going to be applied towards the count. If not, it's not going to be applied. And that's the biggest difference between doing a count versus an operation on a field other than the record ID. So hopefully that makes sense. Now I need to select my rollup control. By default, Apex Rollup comes with this org default rollup control, and I'm going to go into the configuration and the setup for different rollup controls that you might be interested in using in a separate video. But for now, for all of the custom metadata types that we're going to be setting up right now and custom metadata records, we're just going to use the org default that ships with Apex Rollup. So for this one, that's it. That's all I need to do. I can fill out a description. In this case, I'm going to say count of opportunities related to each account. And you know what? I'm going to click Save, actually, because I want to clone this record, take some of the things that I already have on here. So hopefully I'll be able to save a little bit of time here by doing some cloning. Now, I need to refresh my memory already about what these other fields are that I'm looking to roll up. So I want to get the concatenation of all the opportunity names. So let's do that. Concat name to account. If I just remove this value and I tab back over, it'll autofill in for me with the updated value. So concatenation of all opportunity names related to each account. So here I'm going to change the rollup field on the parent object to concat all op names. And on the child object, the only thing that I need to change now is the rollup field on the child object. And I'm going to select name. And I'm going to update the rollup operation to concat. Save that one. And we're off to the races. So I'm going to do a bunch of cloning here. You're going to see how I get these all set up. And you'll see how I also need to remind myself, what else am I trying to do here? Let's do the max op last modified date time. That's a good one. So change the rollup operation to max, change the field on the child object to last modified date, max opportunity last modified date, and we'll update the label and the rollup name for this one as well. So this will be max op last modified date time. We'll do the same for the min created dates. That one should also be pretty easy. Get rid of the name. Min created date time. Minimum created date for each op to account. So here we'll choose the min op created date time. On the opportunity, we'll change the rollup field to created date and the rollup operation to min. Refresh my memory once more. We've got a special one upcoming. So we got min, max. We already have the sum. We did the count. We did the concat. Or did we do the sum? Now I need to refresh my memory on this. I think maybe I missed the sum. Yeah, missed the sum. Okay. The sum of all the opportunity amounts. Add them up to each account. And again, account ID, rollup field for this one is sum of op amount. Go to opportunity. Lookup field is the account ID, and the rollup field is the amount. Easy. And last but not least, we're going to do a special rollup operation. Now, for this one, we want to roll up to this field on the account, which is, does opportunity name contain keyword? And in this case, our keyword is going to be, again, the value third, because some of the opportunity names, stage names, include that. Should have updated that to say, does stage name contain keyword? So, op stage name contains to account. Get rid of this. Go back over. Does any opportunity stage name include the word third? And now for this one, I'm going to do a special rollup operation here, which is sum. This version of sum is equivalent to anything existing on the child object that matches. And in order to perform the match, I need to now use this special field here, the child object where clause, where I can enter in something that's equivalent to what you would be doing with a where clause in SOQL. So here I need to say stage name like, and I'll use the percent signs, third. We'll see how that works out for us. We need to take that percent sign out. All right. So now I'm going to return to the full recalculation app here and refresh it. When I come back here, now when I click the toggle for runoff of custom metadata, I have options here. Again, I have some records that are set up by default in my Scratch org, but now I have the opportunity as a child object available here. And I get a little table of all of the different rollups that I've set up according to those custom metadata records. So I'd like to get this started. I'd like to kick off and start to roll up these values, get the existing values in the org all set up and working. So I'm going to kick this off. Now, if I go back to the Apex jobs page, you can see that the total number of batches is exactly the same as the rollup that I kicked off for just that one specific field before. And that's because since I selected all of the different rollups that I'd like to do, they're all going to be performed in the same operation, which is great. In the meantime, actually, if I go to my list view and I sort by last modified date, I can already start to see these values getting filled out, which is really cool. And as I refresh, I'm going to see as each of these individual batches are processed, this data is going to start to be refreshed in the list view. So my account name on the left here is going to be updating. As you can see, it's getting incremented as it's going through and performing each of these individual rollups. Now here, this is a really interesting batch that I'm looking at that just got updated. For the first time, I'm seeing some of the does op contain keyword checkboxes being toggled. So let's go and look at one of these accounts. This is pretty exciting. So if I go to my related tab here and I look at my opportunities, for the first time, I have opportunities here where the stage name does equal third, which is really cool to see. In addition to that, if I were to go back and look again at one of these accounts where the stage name is something other than third, and I'm looking at all of the rollup values here for this specific account and for all the accounts where third is not one of the related stage names for my opportunities, that checkbox is going to remain false. So that's really exciting because you can start to see how the conjunction of the custom metadata records, going back to that rollup that I have set up, the conjunction of the custom metadata record with the child object where clause allows for some really powerful rollup operations to be performed. Now, there are three specific operations like sum, of which sum is one. The first one in that dropdown that you saw is all. So for that one, if I were to flip that for this specific one, I'll show you what that might look like with this account. If I update one of the stage names to not be third, then that flag is going to be recalculated to false. And there's none. So for none, the only way for something to be true is if the child object where clause that you're using doesn't return any matches for the children records that you're rolling out. In addition to that, I'm showing what this rollup looks like, for example, with a checkbox. You can also roll for those three operations, all, none, and some values up to number fields. So a 1 will be displayed if there are any matches for those different operations. A 0 will be displayed if there isn't for the number fields. And a true or false value if you want to use a text field. So you have three different options in addition, on top of these three operations, all, none, and some, of how that data is going to end up being displayed. Checkbox, number, and text field. So there's a lot of different options that are made available to you when you use those three operations in particular. And there you have it. The batch job has completed. So now that it's completed, I actually want to go back and play around with this rollup a little bit. I'm going to keep the name the same for a second because I'm going to come back and revert this change that I'm making here. But for 1 second, I want to show you, okay, what happens if I change this rollup operation to all? And for this account that I was looking at, what happens if I change this specific opportunity stage name to something other than third? So I'll change it to prospecting. And now I'm already on this account. I don't have any automation set up in the org, but I know that I've just made a change that makes this particular value invalid. So for these specific cases, I've added on a custom Lightning Web Component button that you can drop onto any parent level page, and it'll allow you to recalculate the values strictly for that parent. So let's go back now. I see my little Recalculate Rollups button. I'm going to click it, and just like that, the value is false. So to recap for this one, I changed the rollup operation from some to all. And because I also updated the stage name of one of my child records, the rollup operation for all is no longer true. Every stage name is not like third. If I go back here and I update the rollup operation again from all to some, and I save, and I go back to my child record, click Recalculate Rollups, and we find a bug. And just like that, the rollup value readjusts itself back to true. So lesson learned here is make sure if you make changes to custom metadata in between times that you visited a page that you refresh the page. Not all of the information is refreshed on every single Recalculate Rollups click, and in particular, the information that isn't refreshed is associated with the custom metadata for those given rollup records. So if you make a change to your custom metadata types, you want to make extra careful that when you go back to the page here and you want to recalculate your parent level values, that you've actually refreshed the page. Otherwise, those things won't end up getting calculated correctly because they'll be using stale values. So now I want to go back here and reperform this whole thing one last time all the way through. So right now we're operating with some. I'm going to update the rollup operation to all again. I'm on this account. I have one opportunity that doesn't match, right? So I'm going to refresh the page. I'm going to recalculate the rollup. The value is going to be cleared. Okay. I go back in here to my custom metadata record. I'm going to re-update the rollup operation back to some. Refresh this page so that it gets the updated custom metadata record. And when I recalculate, just like that, the value flips back to true because at least one of the children opportunities has a stage name like a third. So that is all for tonight. I'm going to be recording some additional videos that show how you set up Apex Rollup using Flow, how you set up Apex Rollup using Apex triggers. And in each of those videos, I'll also be covering what it looks like as you make changes to things like opportunities. Now, before we go, actually, I'll show you. I've updated, for example, this opportunity when I updated the stage name. And so when I did that, this scratch org is in Pacific time. I'm in Mountain time. So you can see now that there's a difference between when the opportunities were created and when they were last modified. And indeed, if I were to go back to this prospecting opportunity record that I updated and give it a different amount, now I don't need to refresh the page because I haven't changed anything associated with the custom metadata. But I again know, hey, I've updated the amount. I really would like to be able to reflect that on this parent level record. So I'm going to click Recalculate Rollups. And just like that, the amount updates. But in addition to that, you'll see the minimum created date time remains the same. The last modified date time is just a minute ago from when I made that update. So I want to thank you for coming on this journey with me tonight, seeing what it looks like from initially installing Apex Rollup in an org where the custom setting hasn't even been enabled and it isn't possible to roll up even a single field on a set of children records to its parent, then to graduate to using custom metadata records to hold lots of information about many different rollups that we're interested in performing again and again, and looking at how that can power these batch full recalculations to even something as simple as adding the Recalculate Rollups button to a parent S-object record page and seeing on the fly how those values can be updated for any given parent record synchronously so that the update shows up immediately on the page. And in the future, we're going to be stepping through what it looks like to finish the setup for Apex Rollup by either using Flow or Apex triggers to call Apex Rollup to perform the calculations whenever a child record is created, updated, deleted, or, lest I say it, undeleted in any given org. So thanks again for joining me tonight, and I hope that you enjoyed seeing how Apex Rollup can be easily set up in any Salesforce org and start powering powerful automations for all your data.